family thought they could steal my dream, a vacation I had poured my soul and my savings into, and that I would just take it. They were about to find out, in the most public and expensive way imaginable, that the family ATM had just been permanently closed. For as long as I can remember, I've been the one who holds everything together. My name is Amelia, and I'm the responsible one. The one you call at 2 in the morning when your car breaks down on the side of a deserted highway. The one who co-signs the lease for the apartment you know you can't afford. The one who smooths over every tense holiday dinner with a calm voice, and more often than not, an open wallet. It was a job I never applied for, but a role I was handed the day I got my first decent paycheck. Being on permanent standby for everyone else's drama meant my own life was a carefully controlled chaos of work and obligations. So, after years of putting my family's endless wants ahead of my own fundamental needs, I decided it was finally my turn. I planned the escape of a lifetime. A 7-day cruise through the Western Caribbean, sailing out of Fort Lauderdale. This wasn't just a holiday. It was a monument to my own survival, a symbol that I was finally taking myself and my happiness seriously. I spent the better part of a year planning it. I fell down rabbit holes of cruise blogs, compared itineraries until my eyes blurred, and finally landed on the perfect ship. I booked a stateroom with a private balcony, spending countless work breaks fantasizing about sipping my morning coffee while watching the sun rise over the brilliant blue waters. I prepaid for absolutely everything to ensure a stress-free experience. The premium drink package, a diving excursion in Grand Cayman to see the stingrays, even a reservation at the ship's exclusive steakhouse for one of the formal nights. It was my reward, my sanctuary, my own private slice of paradise waiting just for me. And every last dollar of it was mine. The night before my flight to Florida, my phone buzzed to life. The caller ID flashed Mom, and the instant I answered, her voice, a practiced instrument of manufactured panic, assaulted my ear. "Amelia, thank God," she said, her words a frantic jumble. "It's your sister, Qley. She was in a car accident. She's okay, truly, but the other driver is being a real jerk, and she's just hysterical. Your father and I are here with her, but she won't calm down. She just keeps asking for you. Can you please come over? We really need you." Of course, the fixer, the designated emotional support human. Without a moment's hesitation, I grabbed my keys, my brain already shifting into crisis mode, calculating logistics and rehearsing soothing phrases. I drove the 25 minutes across town to my parents' house, walked through the unlocked front door, ready to mediate, to comfort, to solve. Only to find the entire family, my mother Carol, my father Robert, my sister Qley, and my brother Ben, sprawled across the living room furniture, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of some blockbuster movie on their massive television. There was no damaged car in the driveway, no flashing police lights, no tears. Just a giant bowl of popcorn and an atmosphere so profoundly casual it felt like a slap in the face. Qley looked up from her spot on the loveseat, a piece of popcorn frozen halfway to her mouth. "Oh, hey, Amelia," she said, with the same mild interest she might show a pizza delivery person. I stood there in the entryway, my coat still on, the genuine concern on my face curdling into a dark, sinking suspicion. The car accident? What happened? Where's the car? My mother had the grace to look flustered for a split second before her composure snapped back into place. She waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, that? It was just a little fender bender. It's all handled. We wanted to have a last-minute family dinner before you left. A little surprise send-off for you." A send-off? They had invented a crisis, lied to my face, and summoned me under false pretenses for a send-off that involved them watching a movie I had no interest in seeing. A giant, flashing red flag was waving frantically in my mind, but I was so accustomed to their theatrics, that I pushed it down. I was annoyed, deeply so, but I chalked it up to my mother's typically clumsy and manipulative way of getting what she wanted. I stayed for an hour, gave them another reminder about my ridiculously early flight, and drove home, shaking my head at their gall. I should have seen it for what it was, a diversion. A Trojan horse built of lies. The next morning, I was woken not by the sharp, insistent chirping of my alarm, but by the deep, unnatural quiet of my apartment. Sunlight was streaming through my bedroom window at an angle that screamed one thing: late. I lunged for my phone on the nightstand. My heart didn't just sink, it plummeted into a cold, dark abyss. It was 10:30 in the morning. My flight to Fort Lauderdale had departed from the gate at 8:15. A wave of pure, sickening dread washed over me. I had a string of missed calls from an unknown number, which I'd later realize was the airline trying to find me. I checked my phone settings. The ringer had been switched to silent. I never, ever silence my phone overnight. Then my gaze fell upon my digital alarm clock, the one I had set and double-checked before bed. The alarm was set for 11 o'clock in the morning, not 5. Someone had been in my apartment. Someone had done this to me on purpose. My hands were trembling as I dialed my mother, my voice shaking with a potent cocktail of panic and a rapidly building fury. "Mom, I missed my flight. Something happened to my alarms. Someone changed them." There was a long, telling silence on the other end of the line. Then her voice, disgustingly calm and smooth, slid into my ear. "Oh, honey, don't you worry about a thing. We just couldn't let the trip go to waste." The line was quiet for another second, but it wasn't empty. Through the phone, I could hear the faint, unmistakable cry of seagulls, the distant, mournful blast of a ship's horn, and the gentle sound of water slapping against a hull. My blood ran ice cold. "What do you mean?" I whispered, the words catching in my throat. "We." "Well," she said, her tone suddenly breezy, as if she were discussing a pleasant day out. "Qley and Ben are just so good with airports. And since you all have the same last name, the check-in staff barely even looked at the tickets. We're just pulling away from the port now. The view from your balcony is absolutely incredible. You really did pick a fantastic room." I couldn't get a breath. It felt as if the air had been sucked out of the room. They hadn't just made me miss my trip. They had stolen it. While I was at their house, dealing with their fake crisis, one of them must have used the spare key I'd given them for emergencies to let themselves into my apartment and deliberately sabotage my morning. While I slept, my own sister and brother had taken my tickets, my passport information I'd sent for the booking, my dream, and checked in as if they were me. And my parents, the two people who were supposed to protect me, had orchestrated the entire vile conspiracy. Why? I finally managed to choke out, the single word carrying the weight of a lifetime of being pushed aside. "Amelia, you work far too hard," my mother explained, her voice dripping with a condescending pity that made my skin crawl. "You're always so stressed out. We just thought you deserved a real rest, at home, without the pressure of packing and traveling and all that. We're doing this for you, really. This way, you can properly relax, and we get to have a little family adventure." A family adventure. Paid for by me. Without me. The sheer, staggering audacity of it was a physical blow. All the years of being their safety net, their emergency fund, their therapist, it all collapsed into this one, singular act of profound disrespect. And in that moment, something inside me didn't just snap, it atomized. The reliable, responsible, ever-accommodating Amelia was gone. In her place stood a woman who had just been handed a declaration of war. My revenge wouldn't be loud or hysterical. It would be silent, methodical, and absolute. I sat in the heavy silence of my apartment for what felt like an eternity, the low hum of the refrigerator, the only sound in the world. The shock finally began to recede, replaced by a cold, crystalline rage. They didn't see me as a daughter or a sister. They saw me as a utility, a resource to be tapped, but they had made a fatal error in their calculations. They forgot that the one who controls the resources is the one who holds all the power. I opened my laptop. My name was on every reservation. My credit card was attached to every single transaction. I was the ghost in their vacation machine, and I was about to pull every last plug. First, the cruise itself. I found the customer service hotline for the cruise line. After a brief hold, a cheerful agent answered. "Thank you for calling. How can I help you today?" "Hello," I said, my voice steady and devoid of emotion. "I need to report a critical issue with an active booking. The name is Amelia Hayes." I gave her the reservation number. I explained that, due to a sudden and severe family emergency, the passengers currently occupying my stateroom would need to disembark at the very next port of call, which I knew from my obsessive research was Grand Cayman, and that they would be terminating the remainder of the voyage. The agent was confused, pointing out the ship had just left port. "I understand," I said calmly. "Please cancel the remainder of the booking effective upon their arrival in Grand Cayman. Furthermore, and this is the most important part, please immediately deactivate all onboard spending privileges associated with the account." This was the kill switch. Every margarita, every souvenir shot glass, every hand of blackjack would now be declined. Next, the excursions. I had booked them a day of pure bliss in Grand Cayman, a private boat trip to Stingray City, complete with a gourmet lunch on 7 Mile Beach. It took me less than 2 minutes. I logged into the tour operator's website, cited the cancellation of my primary travel due to an emergency, and clicked the button. The full charge was refunded to my credit card almost instantly. The final piece of this first surgical strike was their way home. They would, after all, need to get back from Florida at the end of their stolen vacation. I logged into my United Airlines account, found their return flights, and hovered the mouse over the Cancel Flights button. A box popped up asking, "Are you sure you want to cancel this booking?" A slow, cold smile spread across my face. I had never been more sure of anything in my life. The flight credit was immediately deposited back into my account, under my name. It took about 4 hours for the first wave of frantic messages to start. It began with a text from Qley. "Hey, my room key stopped working. Guest services said there's a major issue with our booking and we have to see the head purser. Can you call the cruise line and fix it?" Then a text from my brother, Ben, "Amelia. What did you do? They just cut us off at the bar. They're saying our drink package is void, and we have a huge tab that has to be paid in full before we can even get off the ship in Grand Cayman tomorrow." Finally, the main event, my mother. Her first call went straight to voicemail. The message was a screech of pure, undiluted indignation. "Amelia Hayes, what is the meaning of this? You are ruining everything. The concierge just informed us that our stateroom is being resold, and that we have to be out of it the second we dock. This is petty and childish, and you are spoiling our fun." I let her calls ring out. I read their increasingly desperate texts. I pictured them on that glorious ship, my ship, the luxurious fantasy I had built for myself dissolving around them into a nightmare of their own creation. The rising tide of panic in their messages was a symphony to my ears. I let them marinate in it for the rest of the day. Later that evening, an unfamiliar number called. I answered, wary. It was my father. His voice, unlike the others, was quiet and thick with shame. He wasn't yelling. "Amelia," he began, "sweetheart, they were wrong. I knew this was a terrible idea. I told your mother, but she and the kids, they get these schemes in their heads. I am so sorry I let it happen." He paused, and I heard the deep, weary sigh of a man who knew he had failed. "But they're losing their minds, honey. We're going to be stranded in Grand Cayman tomorrow with no hotel, no way to pay for anything." Can you just help us get home?" For a single, fleeting second, a pang of something like pity struck me. He sounded genuinely remorseful. But then I remembered every other time he had stood by in silence while I was being used and exploited. His guilt was a day late and a dream vacation short. This was never about one cruise. This was about a lifetime of being a doormat. "Dad," I said, my voice completely flat, "if you are truly sorry, then you can be the one to fix this. You're the father, you're the husband. You figure it out. I am not your concierge, I am not your travel agent, and as of today, I am no longer your bank. This is your mess to clean up." I hung up the phone. The messages from my mother, Qley, and Ben began to shift from fury to cloying, desperate apologies. They were so sorry, they made a terrible mistake, they just wanted to come home. They still didn't understand. They thought I was having a tantrum, that I was just teaching them a little lesson and would eventually cave, like I always did. Then, as I was systematically blocking their numbers, one last text came through from my father. It wasn't another plea. It was a warning. A single sentence that changed everything. "You should check your credit card transactions from Fort Lauderdale." My heart hammered against my ribs. With trembling fingers, I opened my banking app. My stomach twisted into an icy knot. It wasn't just the pre-authorized cruise charges I was expecting. There were new ones. Transactions from gift shops in the cruise terminal. A charge for a massive room service bill from their first night. And then, the biggest one. A charge for over $5,000 from a high-end jewelry store located on the ship's promenade. They hadn't just stolen my vacation. They had my credit card information from the booking and had gone on a shopping spree, assuming I was too much of a pushover to ever call them on it. This was no longer a family dispute. This wasn't petty revenge. This was fraud. This was a felony. The cold rage from before was now a white-hot inferno. They thought I had gone too far. They had no idea how far I was willing to go. They had just armed me to the teeth. I took a deep, centering breath. The time for simply ruining their fun was over. It was time to introduce them to real-world, legally binding consequences. My first call wasn't to them. It was to the fraud department at my credit card company. "Hello," I said to the representative, my voice now eerily calm. "I need to report several fraudulent charges on my account. It appears my card information has been compromised and used for a series of unauthorized purchases in Florida and on a cruise ship." I explained that I was in my home city, hundreds of miles away, and could provide location data from my phone, work emails, and ATM receipts to prove it. The representative was incredibly professional. Within 10 minutes, my card was frozen. A new one was being shipped to me overnight, and an official fraud investigation was launched. Every single charge they had made, from the overpriced drinks to the $5,000 bracelet, was now flagged as fraudulent and in the process of being reversed. This meant the security deposit held by the cruise line on my card would be declined. The jeweler would be out $5,000 and would be looking to the purchaser on board their ship to get it back. The cruise line would be coming after them for their massive onboard bill. They were now the ones on the hook. My phone began to light up again, from blocked numbers, from strange-looking app numbers. They were stranded, broke, and panicking. I ignored them all until a call came through from what sounded like a payphone. It was my mother. I decided to answer, just to hear it. She was sobbing. A pathetic, calculated waterfall of tears and regret poured through the receiver. "Amelia, we are so sorry. We learned our lesson you taught us. But please, you have to help us. The hotel we finally found in Grand Cayman just kicked us out because the card was declined. We're at the airport, but they won't let us buy tickets because of the fraud alert connected to our names. We have no money, Amelia. We have nowhere to go." I let her finish her entire, self-pitying performance. When she was done, There was only silence from my end. "Mom," I said, my voice as cold and precise as a surgeon's scalpel. "You didn't just steal my vacation. You committed felony credit card fraud. Do you understand those words? You used my credit card to steal thousands of dollars. I have filed an official report. An investigation is underway. The police may very well get involved. Every single dollar you stole is being taken back. Any debt you left behind on that ship is now your problem, and yours alone." The crying stopped as if a faucet had been turned off. It was replaced by a sputtering, genuine terror. What do you mean? You can't do that to your own family. You're tearing this family apart." I let out a short, bitter laugh. "No," I said, the finality of it all washing over me with a sense of profound, liberating peace. "This family was torn apart the moment you decided I was worth more to you as a wallet than as a daughter. You made your beds, now lie in them." I hung up the phone and felt a quiet I hadn't experienced in years. For days, there was nothing but beautiful, uninterrupted silence. I rebooked a portion of my vacation, a quiet week in a cabin in the Smoky Mountains. About a week later, my father texted me. They had made it home. It had cost them a fortune. They had to borrow money from my aunt, sell the bracelet Qley had bought for a fraction of its price, and purchase 4 last-minute, one-way tickets that cost more than my entire original cruise. He said my mother wasn't speaking to him or to me, and that Qley and Ben were like ghosts in the house. He said they finally understood. When they returned, my mother and siblings gave me a wide, fearful berth. They would leave a room if I walked in. That was fine by me. Their silence was the greatest gift they had ever given me. My father, however, came to my apartment a month later. He apologized face to face with no excuses. He looked 10 years older. He handed me an envelope with several $1,000s in cash, a down payment, he said, on what they owed me. He knew I might never forgive them, not in the way they wanted, but he was going to try to make it right. I accepted his apology and the money, but I told him things would never go back to the way they were. And they haven't. I am no longer the family fixer. I am no longer on call. I keep my distance from my mother and siblings, and I have built a life for myself on my own terms. My relationship with my father is slowly rebuilding, but it's on a new foundation of mutual respect, not one-sided obligation. The most satisfying part: I heard through my aunt that my mother tried to organize another family vacation a few months ago. This time, they had to pay for it themselves. They ended up spending a weekend at a roadside motel 2 hours from home. I hear the continental breakfast of stale pastries and weak coffee wasn't quite the same as the Lido Deck buffet. They made their choice that day. They lied to me, and in doing so, they gave me the ultimate freedom, the freedom to finally choose myself. And I do not regret a single thing.